I'm always so excited to be here on the day I'm here. And what makes me more excited is having my two best friends on LinkedIn, Kelly and Harvey, who have gone on to big and great things. The Awesome Journey with Christy Howard, and that's Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And now we've got Harvey, who is always swinging between number one and number two event on LinkedIn for franchising. So everybody's pushing him harder to stay number one. And Harvey's show follows this show on Tuesdays. I'm a big fan, and I'm a part of the audience, which makes it more fun and less responsible. So thank you, Harvey and Kelly. Like I mentioned, the word of the day is value. We depend on your comments to direct and make us more relevant, hopefully give you some takeaways, and really get you more involved in live streaming. Because this opportunity, if you're on LinkedIn and you're at a plateau or you're doing a lot, not getting a lot, this may be the redirection of time, effort, and resources to get you above and the crowd, really give you your personality and brand. With that said, Kelly, why don't you bring us up to date on what's been happening?
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Yeah, always a pleasure to be here, and I love our Mondays now with the three of us. This is super fun. It brings value to my life in so many ways. So great word, right? Value. And just to go off on, I think on my post today, I always try to associate what the word of the day and when I'm on with my show. So there is value in storytelling from others. We learn so much and expand, and I think it adds value to all of our lives, which I hope this also does for you here in community safety, support, adds value. And then I think one of the first things I thought of with the three of us particularly is, working collaboratively and what value you bring to the table, as well as what value do the others bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And Don, you and I actually talked about this quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. The topic has come up, and it is about you've got to give and receive in any kind of collaboration to have value fully. You can't always be the one that's giving, and there's nothing in return, which of course this could apply to relationships. There's value in so many ways. So it'll be interesting to see where the audience takes this, because I think with the variables of definitions of value, it can go in many ways. But I will say the very first thing I thought of, Don, was I will take the category word. Start with the word V for 200, please.
I was tearing it up. Yesterday on Zoom party, came from way behind. Leslie actually should have won. I acknowledged how graceful and thoughtful she was in telling me the answer to how to hit the buzzer. And after that, it was all open field. And I excelled at the letter V words. And to what Kelly is saying, when you get, I don't know if you could say really good at this, you get more comfortable with it. And then you get comfortable with the people that are with it. And that really is what projects out to the audience, that harmony, that interaction. And just like Leslie Flowers, who's just so generous with promoting other people's shows, mm-hmm. and getting involved, and actually being very protective of the people she cares about. That's She's always looking out. It is that you gain a point where you can mix it up, knowing that you know the person well enough to mix it up. Where sometimes you're just really staid and stiff in a way, and you're interviewing, and it's cool, great information. But it's great when personalities start to show up and people get to expect, like Harvey's props, or Kelly's closing statement, or a hat. And really it adds that extra dimension to collaborating versus that hard, cold, drop a comment, get a false reply, do it again the next day, and everybody's just wink, wink, nod, nodding. So anyways, Harvey, before we go to the audience, tell us about what's going on in your world.
Yeah.
It's
Hello,
cold.
everyone. Hello, you guys. Yes, it is cold. Yeah. It's our heating has stopped working, so that's why I've got a nice warm jumper to go with my hat. The hat is actually keeping me warm today. But spirits are warm, and look, got some nice Christmas
Love
lights
it.
going in as well. So.
Oh, love it. Oh, I've got my
Um,
Christmas tree right here somewhere. There it is.
oh yes, there you go. You see. Yes, it's all good and a great word. I think we've talked about value before, and it's a word that can be talked about a lot. I think my initial thoughts on the word value is it's what you bring, it's what you offer. I listened to another franchising show on a Friday, a guy called Joe Caruso, and he was talking about value propositions, and
Oh, yeah.
that was that was really interesting in the world of franchising to understand what value you're bringing, and you said it there as well, Kelly, that it's not just what you bring. And what you give, it's also what you get back. Value is a collaboration. It's an exchange. You're bringing value, and others are bringing value. And then if everyone is doing that, people are gaining value as well. So I'm really interested to hear different people's takes on the word value. But I've always said that with this show right from the beginning, and my goodness, it feels like we've been doing this always together. But it was probably, what was it, 9 months ago, something like that. But I've always got value from, if you start off with a little bit more than you had at the beginning, you've gained some value. And I always found that, and still do find that, being involved in the show in any way, being in the audience or seeing you two lovely people on the screen. So that's my.
Well, I think that's why we have so much harmony and kind of like a simpatico, because the evolution on LinkedIn is connection to hopefully colleague, collaborator, to ultimately friend, right? And you find that people become your friends in addition to being a colleague and a connection. So now you've got 3 layers of connection versus what's usually very superficial and artificial, which is the posting, the commenting, the continually liking, the tagging. It's all trying to gear something up that isn't there versus manifest something from what is there already, and being able to work directly with certain people, because this show is turning out to be host and anchors with the ability now to have someone come in with something that's already proven, right? A proven audience, a proven format, a proven ability to make people feel better. And I think when you have those intangibles, then whatever the subject matter is just in addition to it, versus the subject matter having to be the whole thing. And information for information is boring, and there's so much of it already that people want to be entertained. They want to be inspired and motivated. So it's not only what they take away, it's how they take it away and how it's given. And that way it gets to be something that really can ripple to so many people. So let me get into the audience, and Carl's really the leader right now in our new empowerment collaboration group that we started, because he launched his first newsletter, got over 300 subscribers, is doing it all the time now. And I think that's what is so important, is not what you do, but doing it on a consistent basis. Pick something and start drilling in that one area versus, hey, where's the crowd? And I know an interesting thing, which is counterintuitive for most people, is when you find your niche, you want to retain that niche. and where crowds and audience numbers meant something. Now it's a distortion, a disruption, and and a dilution to the people who are actually here to study, to partner, to grow. So less is more when you're doing more with the less. Dr. New, I haven't ever met you, but thank you for coming today. Great to have you. And, that's the beauty of this is it has no boundaries. Anybody from anywhere who has an internet connection can get the benefit of what we're trying to do. Carrie's here. I was going to get a picture to focus. I would get my camera, watch out since there could be a loose cannon. Yeah, Carrie, you just never, it's like a fountain of never ending comedy. Good for you. Hold down all the guests. It started out 33 degrees here in Texas and staying warm with blanket layers. I wish I knew who you were, but I know you know who we are. And a lot of times it's because of your settings that your picture doesn't show up. So you can always look at privacy unless that's your intention. And Dr. New, I'm hoping to pronounce it well. Collaboration is key, not competition. There's too much competition for nothing. People are fighting over crumbs when they could be joining together for huge opportunities, so you can't major in the minors and, shoot higher, not lower. Oh, Dennis is here. It's a party if Dennis is here. Happy to be here and hear you three today. Happy to have you here on a bright Monday in Colorado. So Kelly, we got a lot going on here. What do you think?
So far, 33 degrees. I guess I'm not going to at all complain about that. It's in the 50s here this morning. I was freezing. And I know it's probably colder in the UK, Harvey. God bless you all. But yeah, I mean, so many things that both of you said, right? I think value is also something that we choose in the sense of if I'm going to show up to a meeting or a show and find value because I'm going, I'm going to find something good today and I want to feel better today. That's adding value to me. I'm looking for it. When we're in a place of like, we're looking at things in a negative mindset, you find all the stuff that's negative and that it is not adding value. So that kind of goes back to mindset, little sidetrack there. But now to go back to even value and collaboration. I love that you said value proposition for one, Harvey, because value goes into so many different things. And that, of course, makes me think of obviously marketing right away. And I do wonder, for people who are out there, like adding value to your marketing strategy of using a live stream. Like I'm still blown away at how many people don't do it. And how many, do say they want to do it. They just don't know how to implement it. Because in my mind, and anyone who does follow me, you know that this is one of my pet peeves, and I do post on it quite often, is about the pitch slap. Like, ditch the pitch, people. It does not work. And why not do something that's unique and do a lead gen that is via a live stream? Like, what value would that add? And then the value that you get for the cost, of course, is so much lower compared to, say, podcasting. And I'm not dissing podcasting, love podcasting, but there's a lot more production involved, so a lot higher cost. So now I know I've totally went into a business direction with that of adding value into your next year. Of what to do maybe with your marketing strategy or sales strategy, having a lead gen with a live stream. I'm just wondering what people's thoughts are with that, because it would work for any business or any industry, any entrepreneur, solopreneur, what have you, or if you're trying to reach more people, because there's so many cool things that you can do with live streaming through an event, because you can funnel it down and target your exact market. So you're inviting people that, would want your product and or service. So now I leapt all the way into the business lane this round.
There's always something we can't help just because of our experience and our focus in it. And I think, again, how you approach business and business people is the same thing as how you approach people. Right? Because they're people first, And if you respect them, if you show some consideration versus the pitch slap or the, I know what you need before I even know who you are type of approach. And where I see value is, again, every word we have, it starts with you. How do you value yourself? How do you achieve more value for yourself? Right? And then the value isn't to be used by yourself. Once you get that value, now you can create value for everybody else who's waiting to get value. So you're almost like the messenger, not the message at times. Your job is to carry it out. What was fascinating is I hit on 2 really good YouTube videos yesterday, and both of them were regarding the algorithm. And what was fascinating was that it broke down the activity on LinkedIn. And you know how we talk about 1 billion people and 18% doing something like reading, commenting, 2% actually creating content, and it goes down from there. Well, what they described made so much sense. Actually, I changed a lot of stuff today. Is LinkedIn is only good for brand awareness and for improving your brand. Sale, and here's why they say that, because, and these people are pretty good, experienced people, and I'll see if I can put the link in the post so people can watch it if they choose. Was when it breaks down from what we just said, there's another level where people participate but aren't seen, right? So they'll watch this and never show up in the comments, and they're there because when it says 70 people showed up, obviously it's not the same 10. So it had to get people that were beyond that. But anyways, that gives you 40% of anybody who's actually doing something. The 60%, they call them the silent people on LinkedIn. And those people will create 95% of all your business activity. Because what they're saying is they're continually watching at times, collecting information. They're not, they're a little bit maybe conservative or trepidatious or whatever the reason. They're the unseen majority. But at a certain point, when they hear enough of something, they actually act on it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's through your content. That's through your brand. Because it hasn't happened to me in 600 shows. Right? I haven't sold anything, and no one's really created any offers for me to create something. At the same time, I did come up with another thought, is if you're so engaged in what you're doing, and it means everything, and it could be even more, to sell time to somebody doing something completely different is really taking more time away from what you need to get done, which will either extend it or make it harder, and you're distracted by their stuff, which isn't to say you should not make money or do things, but make sure it adds value to what you're already doing, right? Work with somebody, and the best thing you can do is work with what you already have. And I think that's what we've been talking about, is how to bring people in and out, because if you look at something, this has been tested 600 times right here, right? It's time to, and that's like being on a test track. Now it's time to put it in production, right? Is to get more people in by using what we've done to get to where we are, because I'd love to take a lot of credit, and so would Kelly and Harvey, but we're just riding a stronger, better wave than what most people are investing their time in. So anyways, it's not a pitch to get involved with us, but an understanding where we're going and where the show is going, because now it's about, let's do something, right? Let's get together, whatever you want to do here. We got something we believe will work. And anyways, with that said, let me get back to the show. I get involved. Value is Val Me too. Omar was the great host of yesterday's Zoom party. Good morning. Good to watch the program of a winner. Congrats on winning yesterday. Have a great show. I always will say that all things equal, Leslie should have shared the prize or had the prize.
Well, but y'all won because y'all got some donation to your charity.
We all got a contribution to a favorite charity. I got to give Omar credit for supporting that, wherever he or however he funds it.
And I just want to interject, Omar, it looked great. I just want you to know. I mean, I can see all the changes you made, and it looked really good. So it was very entertaining.
And Leslie said the same thing, and I thought the same thing because I was on previously. I think the production value was really great. I think Omar shows himself to be a really great guy that loves to tell himself jokes and laugh at them, even if no one else understands them, and keeps it going. Anyways, what I would say is check out Omar's show. I think it'll be enjoyable. And just like our shows, you can always go back and see past shows, I'm sure. But that's one more experience that we're sharing that we think would be positive. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll get on Omar's show and polish your brand. So Dennis comes back with, okay, we covered that. And then we've got Omar saying, awesome, thank you. It doesn't take long. Looks like the comments are working in real time. Stay warm, everyone, for those in the cold weather today, for sure.
Yes.
So Harvey, you've been very successful with your franchise show. You've been very supportive on Sundays of people who are looking for jobs.
Yes.
And I think that's what people should know is things that happen when they're not looking, and what we're starting to acknowledge, because people will look us as trusted advisors if the advice we keep giving them keeps becoming more valued and have value. And I think that's the distillation of whatever we provide is what is the value, and will people ultimately appreciate. And I think just by sharing Harvey and Kelly and Omar, when you promote somebody else, you actually help promote your brand better than you could have if you promoted yourself, right? So Harvey, how do you see this whole branding thing?
Yeah, there's been some really interesting things that have been said. I've been scribbling away here. I think at the beginning you said about meaningful relationships. I thought that was really important to talk about in terms of value, because like you said, when you look at algorithms and you look at comments and you look at analytics and all of these things, what really matters. And it was interesting again when you were saying about that silent 60% that you actually do business with or form a friendship with or have a meaningful conversation with. And that's really that's the only part of the algorithm that you should be interested in, really. The comments and all these things don't really matter. It's what you do with that, where you go with that. And I think you were talking as well. Who said this? I think it was Dr. New that said collaboration is key, not competition. And I really like that as a statement. I had a conversation today with a chap that's going to be on the franchise show. He's a CEO of a franchise organization that does care for people in their own homes, right? But the reason that I wanted on the show is he's a huge advocate of his competition. He's always the first person to congratulate his competition. He meets with them, talks with them, encourages open conversation. So it really resonated with me today, that comment, because I think it's absolutely true. If you can encourage that open conversation rather than feeling threatened, there's so much more value that can be created there. So I thought that was really interesting. Another thing that Carl said as well was crowd versus community. And I like that one. Because again, I was talking with somebody today who is a specialist franchise lawyer, right, which was really interesting. But I was talking about the engagement of all of our shows, actually. And when I say engagement, I'm not talking about how many comments we get or how many likes, but really these comments that we're picking out here, we're all one big community, but we're really adding value by the things that we're discussing and that deep dive, and there are things that are being said that I'm learning about, or it's inspiring me, and then that's inspiring somebody else to make a comment. So this hour or so that we have a conversation, we're adding and gaining value with a community that's interested in what it is that we're doing and looking at doing, other things beyond just the basic algorithms. I found that really interesting that you said that there was that video talking about the fact that LinkedIn is good for brand awareness and not much more. It's a good, what I think it is a fantastic place for is facilitating collaboration. And, it's such a rich environment for finding people and, and understanding what it is that they're doing. And, you can now with things like Zoom or Teams or whatever, which one you use, you can quickly have a meeting with someone, really get to understand who they are. And using LinkedIn Live, I mean, it's brilliant because you can then start to form a relationship with somebody, over quite a period of time. The show I do is booked out a long way in advance, but what that does is that gives a period of time to get to know people, to to really understand what they're doing and to start to form a relationship. So it's a really powerful tool. And you said one other thing, sorry, I appreciate I'm taking up a bit of time here, but one other thing is about finding that niche. And I thought that's worth talking about. Everyone knows that my niche is franchising. Now, when you take those numbers, when you talk about 1 billion people, right, in terms of events on LinkedIn, at any one time, there are around about 100,000 events. And these are online and in real life events. Then when you start to take that down to a particular world that you're interested, whatever that might be, I'm not just talking about what I'm doing, that number suddenly drops. So if you make an impact in that world, you really create some true value there, because suddenly out of 900 million, there's 160 events on the subject that you're dealing with. And if you do that well, you can really excel and add a huge amount of value to the niche that you find. And there's a lot of them out there.
I agree. And I think there's just a little interjection on that too, about LinkedIn being, about branding, and live stream also does that, because when doesn't matter what you buy or what you're selling, but whenever anyone makes a purchase, the purchase is based on an emotion of how something made them feel. It's not based on logic. So it's based on the person. It's based on the brand. It's based on how it made them feel. And doing live streaming, I mean, just think about that. You see people and you get to know who they are because they're buying you. They're not buying your product or service, because likely there's a whole bunch of other options out there from what you have. But you, instead of reading someone's profile, when you see them or talk to them and then go into, Zoom calls or what have you, it's such a deeper relationship. People forget a lot of times that part of the process is still very important. You've got to create the relationship, which is why I will continue to say over and over again about ditching the pitch and the pitch slap, because you don't know what problem you're solving for me when you don't know what I'm doing. And I say that to the level of, because some of the emails that I get are paragraphs long, not just a couple of sentences, going into all this detail of how they can help my business. And I love it when they send it to the Awesome Journey and they're like, "Dear Awesome." And I'm like, well, clearly you didn't look at my profile, because there is no product or service. It's a live stream. But remembering that's the value in any business. I mean, I think of people who I've known for years and years, or even just this year meeting through this platform, because I do believe all of LinkedIn is 6 degrees of separation from Don Cohen. But there's so many people that all of us have done, connections with. Hey, I don't do business with you, or we don't have a synergy business wise, but we have a relationship, and I'm happy to send someone over to you. So the value of a relationship on LinkedIn is what really needs to be looked at. It's so much more than just an email in the inbox saying thanks for connecting with me. Those are just my immediate thoughts on what you were saying, Harvey, because I think it's people kind of forget that. Like, build the relationship. You never know what'll happen from that or where that'll lead down the road. You might be very surprised. I've had people reach out to me that have never commented on any show. I never even knew they were watching, and we're like, "Hey, would you be consider doing this project with me?" Sure, I absolutely would. I had no idea that they'd been watching for months. So that just kind of goes to the silent 60 in the background too. So those are my thoughts right now.
Well, I think this is terrific the way it's moving. And what it also now allows one to do is find out how good somebody is now. What can they do now? Because so many people are leaning on their profiles and their past experience. But until they start working with you, do you see the character? Do you see the integrity or lack of it? Do you see the conscientious showing up on time, promoting? You know, I'll say an interesting thing happened yesterday besides Zoom party is had Rita Wertz back, and she had been on 21 shows with a brand new person that she's been working with, D'Angelo, who had a great story and got his PhD and came from Detroit just like me. She went so far out of her way to promote it. And even after the show promoted it, right? That show got 3 times anything this week as far as interaction, minutes, and really Rita's, no one knew she was coming back. I mean, it wasn't like a regular guest, and definitely nobody knew D'Angelo.
Right.
But it just shows how when people do something more for themselves when they're doing something with you, you know, where you're not having to do all the heavy lifting. And when you make people self-sufficient and you make them independent and you educate them in everything you can do that you're doing, allows them to take that away from you and put it on their shoulders, right? So I think that's where the branding comes in, is it really focuses, and that's why we've talked in the past about B2B. You know, something like this adds branding awareness to your suppliers, will attract strategic partners. That's what this will do. Like-minded, like-purposed individuals. And it will attract customers, but in a whole different way because of time. I mean, how many times you got to see a commercial before you buy that? It might be years. Or how many times you got a car in mind, but until the right time, it's just in your mind. And those constant reminders.
You know, that always reminds me when you say that of Joe Girardo, the greatest salesman that ever lived, the car salesman, because his approach, and he was actually fired by and he went to a different car dealer down the street and ended up becoming like the top salesman ever. And his approach was about brand awareness and personalizing his brand of what he was doing. And again, people weren't buying a car every time he sent out a birthday card or a card to say, you know, whatever. Over the holidays, they were remembering him. So when it came time to buy a car, they were reaching out to him because it was his brand and it was him. It didn't have anything to do with branding the dealership. He was branding himself. And there is a whole cool case study about that because it is pretty funny because he got canned and then to end up being like, and when I'm saying number one, like he was number one, I think in the nation, like he blew up. He had a waiting list of people to buy cars from him because of his brand.
Well, and the whole foundation was handwritten, personalized cards to his list, and he'd send 12,000 a month every birthday, everything he had in his file, you would get a card from, you know. And if you get enough birthday cards and anniversary cards from the guy who just sold you a car or wants to sell you a car, that softens the market because it builds trust.
Yep.
Right? It builds interest in you because people want to know someone cares about their purchase. Someone cares about the money they're spending. And there's not enough after the sale considerations, right? It's like, well, we got their money, let's go after their money. It's like, no,
Yeah.
they spend $8,000. They deserve, a nice little box of cookies or something that's tangible. If you want to make it real, you got to get real and you got to act real. And you got to do things people aren't doing who aren't getting what you want. And it's that extra mile when most people aren't going the first mile. Most people are trying to get away with as little as they can, and they work on that part of it. And then they go to sitting around doing nothing when they could have spent another half hour done something with what they were just doing. So, I think that's so important. And I think that's why live streaming again is so important, because you're going against the majority. You're going in places most people can't, or are afraid of. And that was one common thread, is everybody who ever came on a show typically was a little concerned about going live, how they looked, how they'd be responded to. And once they got over that, which was their biggest challenge, talking became easy, because that's what they always do and that's who they always were. But they couldn't get over that hump. But so many people have that small hump in front of them for so many things, and they're still working hard. And I think that's where collaboration comes in, because all of us could say, if we could do it, definitely you can do it. And you could probably do it better, because you'll start with more than we started. You'll start from where we are, and whatever you add to it is
I don't even want to think about where we started. I mean, and just even to go on the fear of going live, because that is live sounded terrifying, and being judged and all those things. But I think, and we talked about this a little bit last week, Dawn, is and Harvey and I have talked about this before too. One of the biggest things is when you launch is to be like, if nobody shows up, and it's not about the not showing up for you, it's about the not showing up for the guest. But there's technical difficulties and such. But the other part of it is you just got to roll with it, because I think for me personally, what this whole process has done for me as an individual is to be, I lose my train of thought halfway through a sentence sometimes, and I would have been mortified if that would have happened the first time around. Whereas now it's just like, hey, I'm just comfortable with whatever comes to mind at the time. If I can't think of anything, if I misspeak a word or whatever the situation is just about being comfortable with yourself, I think, is the other part of it, and just truly being authentic. I think too many people think a little bit too much about live streaming and being like, well, what are people going to want me to say, and how should I act? And, oh, I like how this person does something, so I want to act that way. And it's like, no, just figure out who you are and just be that. You don't need to be anyone else. And I think that's such a value to others, because it's just saying, hey, we accept you for who you are. That's the beauty of the whole thing. You don't have to try to be like anything else. And to associate that to sales, think of how many of us, when we have been, the salesperson who's that slimy, just kind of, that repels us. It's like, it doesn't matter how great your pitch. I'm not going to buy from you because you're acting like something else. It's not a genuine passion. You don't really care about what you're doing. You care about the transaction. You don't care about me. So that was a little curveball that I'm going to toss back over to you, Harvey.
No, I thought it was great. And it reminded me as well, because I felt exactly the same way. We've talked about it before, about that whole fear. And the thing about fear is it can hold you back, but it also it holds lots of other people back. So it continues to a degree to keep the market of doing something different, like live streaming. It continues to keep it. If anyone says to you, well, someone could go out and copy you if you're successful at it. Yes, they could, but they would have the same fears, the same reservations. So it not only takes a brave person, but it takes a collaborative person, a very open person that, accept a different way of doing it, change it the next day. I mean, again, I remember all the prep I did for that first live that I did with Don, and I don't even write anything down. I've got to admit, right now, we talk about branding, and you mentioned the prop. I've actually taken to doing this now with it. So I used to, that would be one thing I would prep. But actually, you know what I do now? I listen to the conversation first, and I think about one during the show. Right now, that's kind of another sort of, for me, would have been another level of not even having that ready. Right? Because one of the reasons I do that now is because in the times in the past, okay, it's just a bit of fun, but in the times in the past, the conversation has gone a certain way that perhaps it wasn't as relevant at the beginning as it could have been at the end after hearing how the conversation goes. So I think you're right. I think it's kind of getting comfortable with things. And once you're comfortable with doing something, that's a very hard thing for somebody else to copy. So they've just got to get comfortable and do it their own way as well. I'm trying to remember, there was something else that you said that I thought was really interesting. I think it was how does somebody remember you as well, I think, is another thing that's worth mentioning. You talked a lot about that sales guy, and he was remembered for doing some really interesting things there. And it's, people remember you because we've said this as well, haven't we? But how you make someone feel, definitely you're going to be remembered for that. And then all of those things that you mentioned there, like character, integrity, being authentic, all of these really important things are what adds strength to that. You can have all of those things, but if you don't make someone feel very good with your character, your integrity, and your authenticity, you'll probably still be remembered, but perhaps for the wrong reasons. But I think it's really important to understand why and how you're remembered, especially when you're trying to offer a service or make a connection. I think the other thing we were saying there about using LinkedIn Live, and I've written this down, about value and time. And I think I wanted to say the fact that whenever you're learning something from somebody else and getting some value, what you're doing is you're saving time. You just said there, Don, if anyone decided to start with or without our help, but to start a LinkedIn Live, they've already, just by watching any of these shows, just leaps and bounds ahead of where we were when we started. And it's a huge advantage. And if they think that's good, then just to have a discussion, it accelerates the process even more. So I think it's really exciting and really interesting to understand what value means, and what it means to everybody else. But that's my take this round, I think.
I kind of love that too, because values are exactly all those things you just listed: integrity, kindness, curiosity. So that's my little interjection. Go ahead, Don.
Well, I think both of you make so many great points. And, to the point of not selling, there's nothing to sell or nobody who wants to buy when you're first starting out with anybody, right? So if you take that off the table and you really just say, let's get to know you, and are you the person that my audience would appreciate getting to know? Because you're really an advocate for your community. Like I say, audiences are there for a show. Communities are there for each other, right? Once a show is over, an audience moves to whatever the next show is. But if you're part of a community, like, here's Beverly's comment. Well, we'll first do Dr. Now. Thank you very much for providing value. Thank you for coming, and share this with others who might benefit. Beverly comes back. That's so true, Kelly. Tech stuff. Breathe and click that button live. Practice eases everything. Be authentic. Don't overthink. We all flub up. Then came back with, hi, everyone. I'm so happy to get on today. I love Rita. Yes. Teamwork lifts everyone higher. And then here's another one. And Beverly's on every Tuesday, so come tomorrow and you'll see Beverly in person live. Right on Harvey. If you're authentic, you can't be copies. You're unique. They can learn the platform, but that's it. And you know,
Right.
that same time will either expose you or promote you. Allow time to do its thing. Just keep doing the right thing the right way with the right people. And it takes time to blossom. And you want it to, because to Harvey's point, what's hard for you is hard for someone who's coming up after you. Right? If you can get over a hill they can't, well, you're going to be in rarefied air, and you're going to enjoy that you earned something. You know, things that come easy don't last for very long, and usually everybody else can do it. Things that take time and thought, but also are based on those values that ooze integrity and authenticity and being conscientious and thoughtful. I mean, if you're going to bundle it all. Right? If it's all goodness and virtue, there's no sense, well, we'll leave a little generosity out because of this or something else. Put it, overserve. That is so important. You know, when you're in business, you want to give bigger portions in the beginning to everybody. You know, the best way to compete is through their comparison, not your sales pitch. Put something on the market that is so easy to appreciate and benefit from, and someone will say, well, geez, that's like a movie in color versus black and white, or that's like night and day. And after a while it sells itself, and you just became the server. Right? This is what just came out of the oven. Want to present it to you, and everybody says, wow, you know, that's important. So I think it's creating the wow factor in yourself, which is not getting over exciting, but over comforting. You know, because it's safety that people finally loosen up. You know, when do people take off their coat? When they plan on staying, right? If you walk in and you don't know where you're going, you might be leaving as fast as you came in. But if it's like, hey, this is a beautiful community, this is where I like to be. And, you know, people say, well, they're coming here for the host. No, the hosts are here for you. And that's why we start the show. Let's get your comments. Let's get your ideas. Let's start working together. You know, and I think that's so important. So thank you, Beverly. Dennis comes back with a huge advantage be linked in and not linked out of your community. And that's a cool point, because I'll tell you one thing, trust is so hard to build, and it takes so much time, and it's so easy to lose. You know, do something weird that turns you off one time and you're toast. And then there's that element of association. Both ways. You want to be associated with people that already have that character, that integrity, that reputation. You want to run and disassociate from someone who's doing stuff that is not up your alley. And then, you know, it's that shiny object, it's that fast money, you know, it's that lack of discipline to say, you know, who would you invite over for dinner in your house? How many people do you do it? You're pretty particular. Right? And there's an expectation when they come to your house and your table that they'll act in a cordial way or a positive way. And that's what we do here, is open up the dinner table every day, or the breakfast table, and say, okay, let's work with each other. Let's work for each other, you know, and then it'll come back around, and it always does, because either guilt or gratitude will take over. Someone will feel like they're giving me so much, I got to show up and give them something. Or I'm so appreciative of what they're giving, and I love the way this could go. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. You know, I'm gonna invest in this and invest in these people, because these things are built day by day, and to continue, they need to be built on more, better, stronger. Dr. New says, yes, we are all unique. Be authentic, follow your values and passion, make a positive impact. And you know what? When you can do that, at the end of the day, when you put your head on your pillow, you can feel proud, you know, that you are a person of integrity, that you gave more than you needed to get returned, and you're happy to do it tomorrow. And that's how repetition makes reputation. Wow, agree to be the server, then you'll be the deserver. You know, it's a great habit to give. Even, you know, I mean, Bob Berg highlights it more than anybody else with his go-giver philosophy. but I love giving, because there's not enough that I can consume or enjoy myself anymore, right? There's always more for the next person, especially if it's really, buy somebody something that they need, I mean, go to Costco, it's $1.50 for a hot dog. You can buy anybody 5 hot dogs if you wanted to, and you wouldn't break the bank. So Kelly, coming back around, these are always great when the three of us are on, and I agree with you on Mondays because it's almost like coming back from the hunt. It's like, where you been? What'd you catch this week? Who'd you meet? What are you into? And that makes it so interesting. And then when you open it up to the audience, and I know people can hear our smiles and our laughter, and those things translate so well. So Kelly, you're the band leader when it comes to inspiration and being positive.
Well, now thank you. The other thing is now I'm not a hot dog fan, but Costco does make mean hot dog. And that is a value for $1.50 if that's all they are now, because they are pretty big, or they used to be. I haven't been there in a long time. Used to be able to go and eat for free because they had all those testing stations around the store.
Don't you have to eat hot dogs in America? Isn't it sort of part of the thing? You've got to have a hot dog. I mean, when I went, I don't
know why it's American. Why is that American? Hot dogs and apple pie and baseball.
Yeah, well, ballparks are always a hot dog place.
Oh yes, you've heard my hitting park story. Still got nightmares about it. So, but I did have a nice hot dog when I was in New York.
They have good ones there too. And if it's real sausage, like just the regular like hot dogs that you get at the store, I don't see the value in those.
You see, look, we can even turn hot dogs into a relevance.
Not value. The other thing I was thinking of when you were talking was about perceived value. Is how we perceive value of other things, whether or not it is a product or service. And this is going to lead it back a little bit into business until we start to wrap here, is because a lot of times people have difficulty pricing things. Because if you price something too low, depending on what it is, people can perceive that it's cheap. Well, I don't want that. Can't be good if it's that inexpensive. But if you put a bigger price tag on it, it's the perceived value of, oh wow, this person's $350 an hour. They must be amazing. And that's kind of a thing too, is how you perceive value in a product or service, which kind of leads me back to what I was saying in the beginning. Like doing live stream to start out with is a very inexpensive value add item, in my opinion. I don't know why more people aren't starting to do this to start 2024 as something new and for lead gen. And then I really want to go back to also too that the whole thing is added value to my life. I have so much value in the people I've met, the friendships that I have through all of this. I mean, none of us would have met if it wasn't for live streaming. We may have seen our posts and maybe interacted, but we know each other on such a different level because of this platform. So it's added value to my life. So that's where I'm going to leave it right at the moment.
Well, what's so cool about it, it's only been less than a year since we all met, since we all started where we are and where we've become. And again, with the 2 shows that both of you are doing, it expanded everybody's reach to everybody. Like Greg Martin, I just, is coming on January 29th. And I said, Dave is so thrilled to be with you, and Kelly heard about it and wants to participate. And, those things would have never happened before because now we're able to actually pair better, right? Having a matching set of 2 people who are doing the same things, maybe in different ways, or like franchising and getting franchise people together. So we're really facilitators towards matching. And that's a benefit people don't realize, is access that we have to people that match up well with you that you would never meet. I mean, almost every week on Beverly Show, there's a brand new person. And one reason I know whoever I put with Beverly is going to have a wonderful time. And the same thing with Kelly or Harvey is it's guaranteed that if they had any concern, not only will our best practices help them, but we're there for them. You know, the person who's the new guest is the star of the show, not the people who are at the headline of the show. And I think that makes a difference is when you go the other way where most people wouldn't. Beverly says, yes, Kelly, so glad you said that. I just started back on LinkedIn a year ago. Wow, how wonderful all you people are. Yeah, but Beverly, you know, that's what I think this venue, LinkedIn Live or live streaming does. It takes so many people didn't know how good they were until they exposed themselves to a bigger crowd, right? Because most people work with the incremental changes around the world that they were living in. And, you know, and I know in business, when I started, the whole business was the city. There was nothing. I would never think about doing business in another state. I couldn't. It was a physical store, right? Eventually, I did get into mail order, which was in the early days buying ads in Popular Mechanics and Car and Track and Hot Rod, and really did good at that, only because I had a post office within walking distance. So you could take a box, put a label, and walk yards, and it was already on its way. And that's why being aware of your environment, and we have so many wonderful people that we come in contact with. I know Harvey and Kelly agree, is I would have never met these people any other way without having a show. I mean,
right.
it was just, who are you? What are you? And why would I want to talk with you? And that's a natural response. But if I say, hey, I got a great show that people want to see people like you, and we can really, you know, spotlight you. Well, hey, that's not an offer I get every day, you know. And I think Harvey's booking so far out, Kelly booking so far out, me having a show every day and never being at loss for filling a spot, you know, forever now. Because, you know, when you get what you want and you get who you need and who you can help the most, you're there. Work it. Work with those people. You know, dedicate yourself. You know, same things in marriages and relationships. It's commitment, right? It's trust. It's communication. So how many people can you communicate with at one time? How many people can you truly trust? And once you're there, now let's go to work with it. Not get more people to do the work. I mean, it's really a strategy that lends itself to long term. And you'd love to figure if I got to work hard for a year or two, and then it works for me, you know, forever. And you imagine where this is going to be a year from now. Even if we just let everything we did take its proper form, it's all coming to us. Beverly says mail order. Hello, Amazon. Well, and that's a changing time. So anyways, we got about 2 minutes left. Why don't we start with Harvey? Final thoughts on value and your prop, because I know you've been waiting all this time.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I wanted to go back to hot dogs. I know it's strange, but
okay.
it was if you bought a hot dog and it was just a sausage in a bun and that was it, right? You wouldn't feel that you've got a lot of value, but you know, they put onions, they put mustard, they put ketchup, they put all sorts of other things in it. And then you imagine if you actually had a hot dog and you went with a friend as well. So you're eating something with somebody else. Suddenly that humble thing becomes, there's a huge amount of value in it. But then I was thinking I should have had a hot dog as a prop, but couldn't get one of those in. So you know what my prop is going to be today? And it's one of these props that you've seen the whole way through. In fact, it's a prop that you've probably seen on every single episode, right? And it's this. There we go. I'm actually going to take it off. Look, you can see my actual head, right? But the reason that I was thinking about using my hat as a prop is because what you said there, Don, about throwing your hat into the ring, that resonated. That, you know, if everybody does that, you're all adding value to doing something else if you couldn't do it alone. I think also when you're doing things, you've got to wear different hats, You know, if you're trying to achieve something, I think you've got to take on different roles and responsibilities, especially when you're trying to grow something new. And I think I'm going to end, and the last and final thing to remember about a hat is it's not the hat. It's hopefully what's underneath. And it's exactly as we've said, it's character, it's authenticity. And I think that shines through whether you wear a hat or not. But so, yeah, remember to wear a hat, but it's important what's underneath.
Well, that's great. What a way to phrase it, you know, and it's actually you that supports your hat, not your hat that supports you, because you got to realize what is it standing on. Great point, Kelly.
Yeah, so I can just quickly on that. Everybody can add value right now. Just go out into the world and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
Well, thank you. We made it right on the dot, 1 hour exactly. Wonderful audience, wonderful panel, wonderful day. Take some of this or all of this and roll it up and apply it to something. You know, and most importantly, take something you've been holding off doing that you really want to do, you know, is going to be valuable for you to do. But for whatever reason, there's a little hesitation. Is, you know, just breaking through, whether it gets you to where you're going, is a breakthrough. You know, and one step at a time will get you about anywhere in the world if you keep going. So with that said, come back tomorrow with Beverly. Beverly actually has a guest that she suggested, and her name is Denise Drinkwalter. I can't wait to meet Denise. Actually, I'm having a Zoom today with her so I can get to meet her before the show. I always like to do that. Omar closes with, make sure to smile at someone today. For sure, you made a lot of people smile yesterday, Omar, so good for you. So again, thank you. Can't thank you enough, so I'll have to come back tomorrow and do it more.